Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box, part of this WHPC Sports Talk family. I am Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard, as we talk sports every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Brother, how are we doing today?
Outstanding, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good, too. I can't believe the Giants are now in second place.
How about that? They're almost in first.
I know. That's the sad part. I mean,
that's what a winning. Well, I was going to call it a winning streak, but 2 games is not a winning streak.
Well, if you said 2 weeks ago, you would say, "Oh, I'll take that two
well,
game
you take 2.
streak.
Yeah, I'm sorry, from a factual standpoint, 2 games is not a winning streak.
No, that's true. It's not a thing. We should say, brother, in about 25 minutes, Jets beat writer JP Pelzman will be joining us to talk about the horrible season that the Jets have been so far.
It's always good to reflect on a bye week, brother.
He has a very interesting concept. We'll talk about his latest article about what the Jets should do. I thought I read it this morning. I said, you know what? That's not a bad idea, but we'll save it for when JP
some of the same things we've been saying on this show, brother. So you know JP's got the right message out there.
Yes, he does. And, of course, JP's been on many a times on this show, so he's a good friend of the show. Yeah. So, anyway, Giants win yesterday, 27-17 over the Eagles, brother. Shocking. I mean, but you know what? They actually look good playing, which, it's been tough to say about the Giants this year that they look good doing anything.
That's for sure.
So I was like, when I'm watching the game, I'm like, wow, look at the sideline guys. They're all smiling, and they know they're having a good game. Even if they were to lose, I think they would have known they had a good game. So
that's what winning does, brother. Winning makes a happy sideline. It makes a happy locker room after the game. It makes everybody happy. Nobody's miserable when you're winning. So that's what. And you know what? I saw an interesting stat before we get into all of the positive things that happened with the Giants yesterday. Yesterday's game, the 27-17 win over the Eagles, like you said, was actually the 6th consecutive game that the Giants have had a double-digit lead, which was staggering to me.
Wow.
Because I didn't even realize it, but in those 6 games, they're only 3-3. Now, you can say that for whatever reason, this team needed to learn how to win. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, now that they've beaten, now they've won 2 in a row, that now they know how to do it. Well, no, they beat 2 crap teams. The Washington football team is one of the worst teams in the league, and the Philadelphia Eagles really aren't much better, despite being in first place in the NFC East, which is by far the worst division in professional sports that maybe I've seen in my lifetime, and that's going back to a lot of Smythe division teams from back in the 80s in the NHL where the division winner had about 80 points.
And then the Islanders would beat them up somewhere along the line.
The Islanders would have about 118 or something like that. So this is by far the worst division I think I've ever seen. But, you play what you dealt. You play what the schedule tells you to. And if you wind up in first place, then you wind up in first place. And if you only have 6 or 7 wins to get there, well, you know what? You earned it because you beat the competition that is in your division. But that being said, it's a historically bad division. Now, did we see positives yesterday? Absolutely, we did. And I'm going to throw another stat at you for this one, brother. Daniel Jones, for the 2nd game in a row, no turnovers. So are you noticing a trend here, brother?
Yes.
Daniel Jones, no turnovers. Giants have a really good chance to win. So I don't know if this is a new trend for Daniel Jones. No fumbles, no interceptions, but this is what Giants fans have been waiting for. This is what Joe Judge has been waiting for, although not so long. This is what Dave Gettleman has been waiting for. It is for Daniel Jones to show that he can hang on to the ball and not fumble it away at critical times. And you know what? If he can just not turn the ball over or even just limit turnovers. I'm not expecting him to play turnover-free football because that's impossible. but limit the turnovers. And this team will have a halfway decent chance to win, especially if they're playing divisional games.
Well, divisionally, yeah, definitely.
So, everything started well yesterday. Jones scored on a 34-yard run, I believe it was. And that's one of his strengths, is taking off out of the pocket. When he sees the space to just go and pick up huge chunks of yardage. 34-yard run for a quarterback is pretty impressive. And that started them off early in the first quarter. You take a 7-0 lead, and the Eagles were chasing them the rest of the game and never did catch up. It was, the Eagles' first score was a field goal, so it's 7-3. It kept going back and forth. The Giants were putting up touchdowns between Jones getting his run, Wayne Gallman. Who, you know what? I'll tell you what. Wayne Gallman he's been good with Saquon Barkley out. He's carried the load. He's not going to be, like a top 10 running back ever.
Right.
But he's a solid backup. The kid out of Clemson, so he knows how to win because he won a lot in college. And he's a dependable guy. But, yes, 2 touchdowns yesterday, 53 yards on 18 carries, workman-like performance. But some of the stuff I saw on Twitter after this about, well, you could just replace Saquon with Wayne Gallman. No. It boggles my mind how somebody can even think to post that on Twitter.
Well, it boggles my mind that you go to Twitter. So,
Well, yeah, everybody goes to Twitter, brother, except you, because you don't have an account. But
actually, I found out I did, brother.
Well, when was the last time you posted something on Twitter, brother?
I've never posted anything on Twitter, but when I went, it's something like from _FM. I didn't make it up. So, I get Twitter messages all the time now.
I'm sure
saying that people, because I put in my name and that's what they sent me back. So,
well, we'll work on that for you, brother.
I like Smiling Rob Leonard better.
There you go, smiling Rob Leonard, exactly. But anyway, so it's mind-boggling to me that anybody would say, because running the whole supposition nowadays is that running back isn't an important position and anybody can be a running back and you don't have to have a dominant running back. Well, you know what? Tell the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry, who churns out 100 yards a game for them and is the focal point of their offense, and tell the Carolina Panthers with Christian McCaffrey, who's missed most of the season. Carolina's been miserable, so you can win with a good running game.
Well, I think you need a good running game just so it takes away that everything is going to be a pass.
Well, I think what people are saying now is that the league has evolved into such a passing league that the running back, the position has become devalued because teams don't give the ball to a running back 30 times a game anymore. It just doesn't happen. But if you have a good one or a great one, really, let's say, that guy can dominate a game. And Saquon Barkley, especially in his rookie year, because last year he was hurt most of the season with the ankle sprain, and this year obviously tore his ACL and he's out for the year. But Saquon Barkley in his rookie year, whenever he got the ball, he was a threat to take it to the house, and that was the beauty of his game. Is that, all right? You know what? We have to pass, we have to go a long way, but hey, let's give it to Saquon and see if he can break something. Or let's just dump a pass out to Saquon in the flat, see if he can make somebody miss and go 60 yards. That game-breaking ability is something that Saquon Barkley has that very few NFL players have. So, like I said, I like Wayne Gallman. I think he's a good guy to have around. He's a guy that will take carries. He'll do a solid job, like I said. But he's not Saquon Barkley. He never would be Saquon. And that's not a knock on Wayne Gallman. Like I said, Wayne Gallman is a productive guy. But to compare him to Saquon Barkley, to say he can just take his place like it's nothing, is ridiculous. So, anyway, Gallman, one of his touchdowns yesterday was he went right over the pile. That was Walter Payton kind of stuff, where he got the good step and went soaring. And that was a beautiful touchdown. It was you can't stop that play when it happens, when it's right. But between the drives the Giants put together, Jones again, no mistakes. Well, some mistakes, but no interceptions, and just leading drives and putting the team in position to score touchdowns, as opposed to having to rely on field goals which is what was going on earlier in the season. So all of that stuff is progress. And it's nice to be talking about progress from either of our New York football teams that actually results in victory, as opposed to trying to find something positive in another loss. So, the fact that the Giants beat a team that just a few weeks ago, the Eagles came back in the fourth quarter and rallied for a win, to me, was one of the more disturbing losses of the season, because that game, the Giants really did have that game in the bag. But to do it this time, and Graham Gano kicked a couple of field goals in the fourth quarter to keep it far enough away that the Eagles weren't going to get back into it. So it was just a really solid win. It was nice to see. Like that first game that the Giants and the Eagles played was so sloppy, and it was so ugly. There was that Thursday night game, and it was bad television. It was a bad game. There was no redeeming quality about it. And this was a solid game, and the Giants played well, and they did everything they had to do to win. It's nice to see. Finally, one of our football teams puts in a game where anybody in the league would look at that and say, "Yeah, the Giants did a nice job."
Well, there is, and if it was any other division, we wouldn't be talking this. There is a chance that the Giants could take the division.
Oh yeah, there certainly is.
Right now, the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys are 2-7.
They're terrible. They're going nowhere, either one of them.
And the Eagles are what 3-4
No, 3-5-1 now.
3-5-1, yeah.
3-5-1. The Giants are on a bye next week. So
right.
the Eagles are either going to go to 3-6 or 4-5. And if they go to 4-5, then that makes it tougher for the Giants.
Right, but they're still close. I mean,
they're still close. But that tie that Philadelphia has means that the Giants have to get 2 more wins.
Right, and also the Giants have to play well too. I mean, we're happy they've done well in 2 games, and maybe they should have beat the Eagles too, or also. But it's something I wasn't thinking about, and many other Giant fans weren't thinking about. A couple of weeks ago. So
winning the division.
Yeah.
Nobody was thinking about it. Nobody. Well, here's what we got for the Giants for the rest of the season. We got, after the bye week, we got the Bengals on the 29th. But see, now it gets tough. Seahawks, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Cowboys. So there's a very good chance that the Giants at most go 2-4 there. In fact, I could see the Bengals beating them too, because if Burrow has a good game, then the Bengals certainly could. I mean, the Bengals were terrible yesterday, just absolutely terrible, dreadful. Yeah. But they played the Steelers. The Steelers are one of the best teams in the league.
Right.
The Giants are not the Steelers. But out of those 6 games, like I said, it's you're looking at 2-4 or 1-5. I mean, they'll beat the Cowboys, or they should anyway, in the last game of the season. Depending on maybe what's at stake, or if neither team cares or whatever, you don't know those last games of the season. If nothing's on the line, it becomes a matter of which team just wants it less, or which team wants to get out of the stadium fastest. So, that's an issue, and that game is actually at home. So, maybe the Cowboys mail that one in, and the Giants that would make them 4-12, because they're 3-7 now. So. They're going to have to upset some teams, and they're going to have to, surprise a couple of teams. Can they beat the Browns? Sure. Can they beat the Cardinals? Maybe. I don't see them beating the Ravens, and I don't really see them beating the Seahawks, even though the Seahawks have struggled for the last couple of weeks. But those teams are clearly superior. So I think the best that we're looking at is probably 3-3 down the stretch, and that would put the Giants at 6-10, and 6-10 is not going to win a division.
No,
or at least it shouldn't. Let's put it that. It shouldn't. It should. I don't know how many games the Eagles have against the division to go here, but who knows? I still think 7 wins will be necessary to win the division.
And 7-9 isn't what you call a great season, but once you get in the playoffs,
anything's possible. In the playoffs. I'll tell you what. If I was a playoff team, I would certainly love it if the Giants were a team coming into the playoffs that I had to face. That would I'll tell you what, that would be a nice little vacation in week 1 for the playoffs. I don't think they'll go anywhere. Because if they have to face a quality team like that in the playoffs, I can't see that happening. There's still too much of a talent gap between this team and some of the top teams in the NFL. But that being said, are the Giants better than they were when they were starting the season 0-5? Yeah, absolutely they are.
Yeah, much better.
They've certainly improved, and they've improved by a good amount. So, I don't want to rain on a parade here, but, this is not a 500 team. And we shouldn't pretend like they are or think that in any way, shape, or form that they're going to finish the season like the Jets finished last season, where where they finished 7-9 or whatever it was, and they won their last 5 or 6 in a row. That was a schedule blip, if nothing else. The Jets played a lot of really bad teams in those that last month and a half of the season. The Giants don't have that luxury. There's like I just said, there's some several very good teams in the final 6 weeks. And you got the Cowboys too. So they hopefully have at least one guaranteed win in there. But I'll tell you what, I was pretty happy with what happened yesterday. Like I said, Daniel Jones, 21 for 28, 244 yards, no touchdowns, but he had that one on the ground. 64 yards rushing on 9 carries. What else? Giants, like you said. I did want to mention Graham Gano, the kicker, was actually signed to an extension after the game. Gano was actually a Pro Bowler in 2017, and he came to the Giants because of his connection with Gettleman from Carolina. Right. But he's 21 for 22 this season on field goals, and has made 4 of 5 from 50 yards or more. So his only miss is longer than 50 yards. So the guy's been money. So they signed him to a 3-year extension. That's a great deal. The Jets can tell you how important it is to have a reliable kicker.
That's right. Anyway, brother, guess who's joined us via Zoom?
Let's go to Jets. My man JP
Pelzman. JP Pelzman. Hey, how we doing today, man?
Not much. How's it
Get closer to your microphone, man.
Okay, how's that?
That's a little better, man. This isn't one of those. This isn't one of those Jets.
Turn up my mic. How's that? Turn up your mic, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Stop acting like a computer too. This is radio, man. We there's no seeing your good beard that you have that we see on Zoom right now. And look at that beard. Look at that beard, Sam. It looks. I'm not sure who has a better beard, you or him. Wow. How's your pride on the air with us right now?
Neither one of us is James Harden, so.
Yeah, well.
I see our hair is all getting white. I see that.
Well, that's what happens
when you get old, man.
Yeah, I know. It's called old age.
Hey, JP, so, good news for the Jets this week. They didn't play.
So they didn't lose.
They didn't lose. No loss this week. Woohoo.
So, but you had an interesting article this week. In first of all, we should say JP is the beat writer for Forbes.com, covering the Jets. If you want to read his articles, are on was it Forbes.com and then search Jets or search JP Pelzman?
Yes, search JP Pelzman, Forbes.com Jets. Yeah, you can find them all.
Okay, so you actually were talking in this week's article that the Jets should play Sam Darnold for the rest of the season for several reasons. And we've talked about a couple of them on the show, but you sort of captured them all in one article. And the first of all, you want to see if Sam Darnold could actually play. If you're going to trade him, you got to see if he can still play. So what are some of the others that you had in the article? I thought it was good stuff.
Thanks, Rob. I just feel like, first of all, listen, I think you guys know I am not a Sam Darnold apologist. Maybe I've been too hard on him sometimes, I'll admit that. But let's face it, this was the first time, the game that Flacco played last week, first time they had their projected starting wide receiver lineup on the field at the same time. So it feels like, hey, let's give the young man a chance to have all his so-called weapons in the game at the same time. He hasn't had that this year. He hasn't had Crowder, Mims, and Perryman on the field at the same time ever. Let's let the guy have that. At least, even if you've already decided you're moving on Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or whomever, let's let him have the full complement of his guys. And even if you decide you're moving on, Let's give the guy a chance at a realistic change of scenery. And you know what? Let's benefit, if you're the Jets, benefit yourselves by getting the best possible return. Right now, if you're trading him right now, you're selling pretty low.
Yeah, selling very low. He's a guy who, I've said this before on the show, JP, I could certainly see a Ryan Tannehill type resurgence from Sam Darnold after the Jets move him, assuming, of course, that they do move him. But, and I've said this a couple of weeks ago, what happened with Tannehill? He got blamed. Dolphins fans hated him. They said he was a bum. He couldn't get it done. But who was his coach? And now who's Sam Darnold's coach? There's parallels here that you can't ignore.
That's true, but I think both can be true at the same time. Adam Gase could be a horrific coach, which we know he is.
Yes.
Sam Darnold also has problems. He does not see the field. He does not get rid of the ball when he should. I'll give you, for instance, the play he got hurt on, or the second time he got hurt. In fact, both times he got hurt, guys, there was an open receiver he didn't see, and if he gets rid of the ball, maybe he takes a hit, but maybe he doesn't take the crushing hit that damages his shoulder. Maybe he just takes a glancing blow, and he gets up and he's good to go the next game. I mean, in the Kansas City game, it was a blitz from the left side. The slot corner blitzed him. Well, ergo, shouldn't the slot receiver be open? And he was. Darnold doesn't see it. That's your hot read. Get rid of the ball. Again, I'm not trying to listen. Again, he hasn't. The Jets, listen, we can go back. I know everyone, the revisionist history is now Jeremy Bates was, Sid Gilman or somebody. I know I'm going way back when, but Bill Walsh, bring it a little closer, okay?
All right.
But what somebody should have done with the Jets, and Tim, you know what? Your prediction could come true if the next team does this. You know what I would do? I wouldn't even play him right away. I would, or at least if they have a spring next year, the next team, break Sam Darnold down. His mechanics are not good. His footwork stinks. You got to break his mechanics down. I don't know if he can fix the hitch in his throwing delivery. That may be already too far gone. But his footwork, he has throws, guys, where he'll throw the ball down the middle. His right foot's pointing forward. His left foot's pointing to the left. That's not going to work.
No. You have to be directed at where you're throwing. Exactly. Otherwise the ball's not getting there. And especially it's not getting there in an expeditious manner. Let me ask you this, JP, because this is something that we kind of tossed around a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to get your take on this. First off, I mean, we on From the Press Box are assuming that the Jets will get the number 1 overall pick because we said this before. We don't see a win on the schedule. But is there any chance that the Jets don't take Trevor Lawrence with the first overall pick? And when I say that, I'm not saying that they would pick somebody else, or unless Lawrence tells them, pulls an Eli Manning and says, "No, I'm not coming. Do not pick me," or trade the pick. But is there any? Is it a lock that Lawrence is coming out? First of all, because he's still only a junior, and is there any chance that the Jets would say, for whatever reason, you know what? Let's stick with Darnold and let's take the 2 number 1s plus whatever else we're going to get that we'll get for that pick that's going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Well, you know this as well as I do, Tim. We did discuss this in our pre-show preparation, and unlike some people, like one guy retired recently from a big station, we actually do show preparation.
And there's the Francesa's shot of the show.
It was Beningo, actually.
Oh, Beningo. I'm sorry.
The difference was Francesa, Rob, in his decline, Francesa was inadvertently entertaining. Beningo wasn't. But anyway, it just makes sense. Even if you thought Darnold had a chance to be the guy, it's better to restart the clock, as Tim noted to me, on a rookie deal. Economically in the NFL, it makes sense because you're going to have to pay by 2022. You're going to have to pay Darnold real quarterback money, and you don't know now whether he's that guy or not. I don't think he is, but
I don't think he is. And I've defended Darnold on this show many times just because the Jets really haven't put anything around him.
No, they failed him. I'm not saying they have failed him.
But that being said, do you want to then invest $25 million a year in a guy that you really don't know if he can actually play the position?
And they made that mistake with Sanchez, and look how that worked.
Right. Exactly.
They paid him big money, and that was the opposite. They propped him up with a lot of great weapons and a great O-line around him. And then when that stuff wasn't so great, when the system around him started to show some leaks and cracks in the system, guess what? He wasn't so good, and they were stuck with 11, basically.
Right.
Getting back to your question, Tim, no. I mean, yeah, you said yourself, and also I just feel that, again, I don't have a source in this, but I think it was posturing. Again, what's Joe Douglas going to say publicly? Yeah, my quarterback sucks, so you know what? Give me a 6th-round pick for me and we'll be good. Obviously, he's going to pump him up and say they still believe in him. But no, I can't see any way. And as far as Lawrence, I think he's trying to be, and I don't have anything against the young man, but, you know, there's a little bit of drama queen in everyone. He told ESPN in September before their first game, he said, I'm planning on this being my last year. And just even if I don't know if he has one of those insurance policies or whatever, but let's face it, economically, why would he stay, especially if they win the whole thing?
Exactly.
Sense for him to stay. And as long as the what's the word I'm looking for? As long as the big bad monster, the Wicked Witch of the West, as long as Ace is gone, and there's no way he will be there by the spring. We all know that.
Yeah, he's done.
Come to the Jets. The economics, even with a higher tax rate of, say, New York than Jacksonville or New Jersey than Jacksonville, the economics of being in the New York area for a guy like Lawrence with charisma are just so much better.
Yeah, I mean, if Eli can make that much money, as much money as he made making commercials, think about what a guy who can actually speak and who has a personality. Think about what he can do.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about Adam Gase. You know, Timmy and I wake up on Monday and we say, hey, has Adam Gase been fired yet? Or even during the game, sometimes we'll say, hey, has Adam Gase been fired yet? At least I do.
A bye week is usually a good time to fire a coach, but
yeah. So what do you think?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. I would love to have known. Obviously, this wasn't that New England team to do it. Although I didn't buy all that nonsense. I know it was a good meme or a good narrative to push. Oh, Bill Belichick's tanking. Didn't look like it last night. I know they're not having a New England type year, but if this had been like the New England type team of last year, even in Brady's so-called decline. Obviously, again, Brady didn't have the weapons last year. You see what he's doing this year with better talent around him.
Right.
But if it had been 33-0 last year with the Ghosts, then maybe they could have done it, but they weren't going to fire him off a competitive game. But yeah, usually bye week would have been the time. But yeah, to your question, Rob, yeah, there are actually probably websites. I know there are Twitter feeds that the guy's handle is, has Adam Gase been fired yet? But
I didn't make that page up.
No, that's interesting. Here's what it comes down.
I'm sorry.
Quick. I think real quick. I think it's a misguided thing by the Johnsons, and I'm sure Woody still has a little bit of say from the Tower of London or Big Ben or wherever he is. But I think they think, maybe he'll somehow quit and we won't be on the hook for the whole money. But who's going to quit with 6 or 7 games left and forfeit all that dough? It doesn't make any sense.
When was the last time an NFL coach quit?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't happen.
And why would he's got still $5 million for the next 2 years. Even if you bought him out, who's going to leave that kind of money on the table? It doesn't make any sense, especially when he's not going to get another job in the NFL.
Exactly. He's not. There's no way he's a head coach ever again.
I don't even think he'll be an OC with the way this offense is. They're the bottom by far.
Gase has been exposed in his time with the Jets. He really has. If the Dolphins didn't do it, and that was another question I wanted to kind of get into you with. But you know what? I look at the Jets and the Dolphins from 2 years ago, and those two teams were basically in the same place, or at least in similar places. And now you look at the Dolphins, and they're a surging team. This is a team that is clearly on the rise. And what happened with these two teams? The Dolphins fired Adam Gase, and they hired Brian Flores, and the Jets hired Adam Gase, and now look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 6-3, and they look, even though I didn't necessarily agree with replacing Fitzpatrick with Tua, the move was working out.
Yeah,
and they got Tua learning on the job. He's winning games, and this is now a team that is going to fight with Buffalo for the division title. Yeah, and where are the Jets? The Jets have no wins.
I'm still not sold. I'm still not sold with every move the GM has made, but I am sold on the head coach, Flores. And I saw the 2 games they played last year, the Jets and Dolphins. he is the right guy, and he is so much better than Gates. It's not even close. But, obviously, you might have heard him that he was coming for the Belichick tree, which has not been good. But I know one thing. Nobody's ever going to pick up the phone again when Peyton Manning calls Manning coach. That's for sure.
Yeah, hey, I got a coach for you. Yeah, good. Let him coach at Peytonville High School.
Yeah.
So, but what I was getting into with the Dolphins is because obviously the Dolphins, this is a team now that is moving in the right direction. What do the Jets have to do to fix themselves? And can the Jets franchise be successful with somebody named Johnson as the owner, or is that what it's going to take?
That's a great question. Well, only what they have to do is do what, Robert Kraft did years ago, and we're talking 20 years ago, is basically say to Joe Douglas, listen, this is your show. I mean, listen, Douglas hasn't made every good move. I did have one material here prepared, so let me just, and he even admitted the one mistake he made, he probably should have kept Robbie Anderson. My take on it is he should have, here comes the shtick, he should have listened to Chris DeBerg and said, don't pay the Perryman.
Oh, boo.
Okay.
Well, we're banning punning next time.
Okay, well, 80s music, come on. You don't have any 80s shows on the station?
Well, did you hear that Hofstra USA? Come on.
No. When they let Robbie Anderson go, I didn't like the move because he was a good receiver for them, but off the field issues were a concern. Those were a big concern.
I think it was culture. No, I think it was culture. And I also had heard like through the grapevine that the Jets had done a lot to kind of help those charges get reduced or dismissed.
Right.
He really wasn't appreciative of that. So it kind of went to culture.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Okay, Douglas, he's had good and bad. I think Becton is a keeper if he can stay healthy, which is an issue so far. Maybe he needs to lose weight. I don't know. I certainly do. But Douglas needs to somehow convince the Johnsons, listen, get out of the way. Let me fix this. Let me do this. Let me hire the coach, and then let me be the coach's boss. Because right now, you basically have two head coaches doing their own thing. And neither of them, listen, Greg Williams was good last year, guys. This year, not so good.
No.
You'd agree.
And definitely agree.
Two head coaches kind of doing their own thing, and you've got a GM who really can only do personnel. Listen, I don't want him to be micromanaging like in baseball, but during the week, he should be able to say to the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, hey, maybe so-and-so should get some more playing time. Maybe this guy shouldn't be on the field. He should have that kind of at least input where they could consider it. That doesn't happen. Greg Williams is like his own boss, and he plays whoever he wants to play. And let's face it, some of these decisions are bizarro world.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is that, you talk about the head coach or the GM being the boss, and it's almost like Gase is Douglas's boss because Gase is the guy that got him the job.
Bingo.
Douglas isn't here without Gase.
Exactly.
So who is going to be the guy to pull the trigger and say to Gase, you know what, this is, you got to go be somebody's assistant because this is not the right job for you.
No, and that's the problem.
We need to do something.
You just hit it, Tim. If this were a normal organization, he'd be gone by now because the GM would have said, you know what, this isn't working. We got to get rid of him. But here, it's not even the GM going to the owner and saying, I want to make the change. The GM can't even do that. It's the owner who makes all the calls. And you have, let's face it, owners who don't know anything about football. They don't even know anything about running a business. Why do we think about Jerry Jones? He's a self-made man. He made his money. The Johnsons, they don't even do anything at Johnson & Johnson. They just sit there and watch the money roll in. They're smart enough at that company to say, you know what? Keep those guys away from the business and we'll make the money. You guys just sit there, with your trust fund. That's the problem. Let's face it. We just saw it with the Wilpons. Listen, I don't like the way Steve Cohen amassed his fortune, the hedge fund stuff. That doesn't thrill me. But you got to admit, the guy knows how to make money. So that's something that the Wilpons didn't know how to do. So,
very true.
Well, they did it at one point, and then they gave it to Bernie Madoff, and they
that too.
They lost money.
Well, that's true.
So.
Fred did know at one point, but Jeff certainly doesn't. Jeff Wilpon never made a dime in his life. So my point is just my analogy is you have with the Johnson brothers, two guys who never made, a penny in their lives, and they're trying to run a business and they don't know what they're doing. And let's face it, that's the problem here. And you don't have an organizational structure with the GM, the head coach, the defensive coordinator are equals. That makes no sense.
You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. From the press boxes on your radio or on your listening device, or maybe hearing this as a podcast later on. I'm Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my co-host and my brother, award-winning sports writer Tim Leonard. Joining us for the last 15 minutes or so, and probably a little more, is JP Pelzman. He is the Jets beat writer for Forbes.com. And we're talking about his latest article, among other things. JP, one of the good stories, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but Joe Flacco is number 20 right now in all-time passing yards. I don't know if you know that. He is 200 yards away from Kerry Collins to be number 19. And if the Jets let him play the rest of the season, he could probably go to number 18. I agree with you. I think they're going to let Darnold play the rest of the season, but Flacco just needs 200 yards to get to number 19. I didn't realize that's a lot of games. He's played a lot of seasons, but still, he's ahead of Joe Montana. So it's to me, when Flacco comes in, I'm happy because I'd like him to see. I don't think he's ever going to the Hall of Fame, but number 19 on passing yards ain't bad either.
Well, I just wish Darnold could learn a little from watching that game, because other than that pick at the end, which obviously set the Pats up to win the game, Rob, that's what Darnold needs to do more often. Just get rid of the ball quicker. Let your playmaker. Again, I know he didn't have those guys at Flacco last week, but get the ball out on time. That's the biggest thing Darnold doesn't do. You have to just get rid of the ball, and I don't know why he doesn't do that. And I do think he's a little skittish in the pocket. He's looking at the rush. You got to keep your eyes downfield. Flacco does that. Flacco's looking downfield to make a play. The only time Darnold's looking downfield, guys, is when he's out of the pocket. And that's been a problem this year. It's been a big problem, I got to admit, ever since the mono. Is there a correlation there? I don't know. Again, one of us has had it, but then again, Tim also never had a 300-pound lineman afterward.
That's true.
No, nobody was chasing me.
But I do notice a difference. I honestly do. I don't remember as a rookie that he was this skittish in the pocket.
Yeah, that's true. One thing, two more things that I just wanted to ask you about real quick. About a week and a half ago, Joe Douglas, the general manager, as we mentioned before, kind of unexpectedly to me, and it was a little bit of a surprise that he really did put all of the blame for this season on himself. And I don't know if he was trying to take some of the heat off of Gase or what his reasons were. But were you at all surprised by that move from Joe Douglas to say, hey, you know what, if you're going to blame somebody, blame me?
I thought it was a little surprising. I don't know what the reason was, but that's a great question, Tim. But I thought it was a little bit of good self-scouting because, like you said, I mean, I do think he kind of, misread the market a couple times. I think the biggest thing, he didn't really address this, and I wrote about this. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, honestly, but I felt like for an ex-offensive line guy with the pandemic and everything, this wasn't the year to just wholesale change your O-line with not having a spring. And I think you saw the first half of the season, there were a lot of times that they just weren't in sync. And I'm sure he didn't think in March, okay, we're not even going to have any preseason games. And listen, just as a side note, as much as we all hate the preseason games, I think this year showed us you need at least two of them. You can't just go in a season with no preseason games. Good
point. I prefer two. I think 4 is too much.
Yeah, four is definitely too many. But especially like you said, if a team is restructuring your entire unit, and if you have a completely new offensive line, you need to give them a game or two together to see what they need to shore up and who does what. And O-line is like everybody's working together, or at least that's the way it's supposed to be. So if you have a guy who's breaking away from that and isn't part of that unit, and they need to get together, then your O-line is not going to get the job done.
But I think you also want to take heat off the players because let's face it, I mean, it's hard to know that's also the problem now in this Corona world is we don't know what the locker room is like because we really can't go in there. As you guys know, not being together doing this show now, not being in the studio there, in a normal year, you get to go in the locker room and you can even talk to guys off the record. We have no idea obviously it's terrible. I do want to say one thing before we go, and I get the fans wanting them to go 0-16, but and you know this, Tim, from covering stuff. When you go in the locker room or a clubhouse after a game, a tough game, like if we had been in the locker room after the Monday night game, guys are they're devastated. I mean, I think the fans understand that, and it's
no, they never do. They never do. The fans look at it and say, "Well, we want to go 0-16 because we want to get the number 1 overall pick," and they don't understand. These guys are fighting for their jobs.
Yep.
These guys are looking at the possible difference of making whatever, even like the lowest paid guy is making what, like $500,000 or something close to it. And he's looking at that, or next year he might be unloading trucks at a supermarket. Exactly. So think about the difference in income. These guys are fighting for their lives at this point because what they're making in one NFL season could be at least what they're going to make for the next 10 years at some other job. So the fans don't realize what, like they think these guys are just coasting and they'll all be back next year. Well, no, like probably 15 of them won't be back.
Yeah. And they don't understand. Exactly. They don't understand like the 38 to 53rd guys on the roster. They don't care if, Trevor Lawrence being here next year doesn't matter if they're not. And like I said, they're unloading crates somewhere, or they're trying to sell insurance. What do they care if Trevor Lawrence is here? It doesn't help them if they're out of the league. And
exactly,
I'm glad you mentioned that because I just wanted to mention that because it's hard for me to just write about the tank like they're tanking. Well, no, these guys, this is their this is their life.
Yeah, this is their job. And this is and most of these guys understand, especially the 38 to 53 guys. These guys understand they're not going to be around a long time.
No,
and they need to make the money while they can.
And this isn't baseball where if you don't survive at the major league level, you can go back to AAA. I know it's going to change next year, but you know what I mean. For the most part, you could always go back to AAA and make a decent living. You could still make $100-200 grand at the AAA level and hang on for a bunch of years. It's not
or go to Japan or Korea or whatever and still make decent money anyway.
The NFL
with football, what's your option? You go to Canadian League and you're making maybe 50 grand, or you go to the Arena Football League and you're making even less than that.
Yeah, the options aren't the same in the NFL world as they are in the MLB world.
Well, one of the things I've always noticed is when the fans say that it doesn't come from the players giving up. It comes from the management saying, okay,
correct.
Let's not play this guy. Let's not play this guy. Let's trade away this guy and we'll worry about next season now. And so it's not the players. It's always been the team. The ownership.
The team is always about bottom line. And if they can save some money, like releasing Le'Veon Bell, that's what they're going to do. The byproduct of that is there less talent on the team after they release him? Yeah, there is. But that was seen as a move that, for whatever reason, made sense at the time.
Well, JP, one of the things I said to Timmy over the last couple of weeks, the Jets are very fortunate that there's no fans seeing them this year. I think it might be more intense if MetLife Stadium was filled every home game for the Jets and they lost.
Thank you, Rob. I should have brought that up before, and thank you. That's a good point to close on. That's another reason why Gase is still around. Is that number one, that pressure is not there of chance of fire Gase.
Right.
And secondly, these are not my figures, but they're Forbes figures. In 2018, the Jets made $475 million, and $218 of that was from game day revenue, tickets, parking, concessions.
Right.
All that's out the window that $218 million. So somewhere, I guess, in their logic, that money's gone. But to me, again, Gase's salary is a sunk cost. It's gone. to me, the damage you're doing to your brand by having this guy around isn't worth it.
Right. No, hey, it took a long time to get over with a 1-in-15 Rich Kotite Jets. So, you know.
The only good thing is now, I guess, maybe in future years, instead of saying this season's Kotite, people will say this season is Gasian, I guess.
No, I think you're right. JP, we appreciate you stopping by. And one more question, because we had Christy Ackert on a while ago. How is covering the team this year? Obviously, like you said, you don't go and talk off the record with these guys, and everything's been through Zoom, and, you know, it's a difference. How has it affected you covering the team?
Like I said, it's just not the same. I mean, to me, I just hope for you know, 1 or 2 years down the line, if things ever get back to normal. I just think, I think it's hurting. Listen, I understand why it is, but it leads to it's not as good an experience, I think, for us and the fans, because you're not getting as much insight, because they'll cherry pick who they want to give you after the game. You know, request, but it's no guarantee you're going to get somebody. Whereas in the locker, you can just walk up to somebody. Now, if they say, beat it, as Kevin Williams, the Jets once said, that's fine, or, get lost. But, then you can report that. You can't, they can, make available. And again, they've been great. Don't get me wrong. They've been good. I'm not criticizing them. But it's just not as good. I mean, really, it just hurts access-wise. And I just think the fans don't get – listen, again, I get it. But you're not getting the same picture you once did. And I think that's a problem. And I think it allows teams to operate – I don't want to say secrecy, but allows them to operate a little differently. There's not as much I guess sunshine would be the word, I guess.
Okay, good point. JP Pelzman, Jets beat writer for Forbes.com. Thanks for joining us, as always. Your 7th or 8th visit. Always comes with
not more than that.
I don't know. But it's always good.
Double figures by now.
It's always good to get the Hofstra Chronicle alumni on the show. Not me, but Timmy and JP. The Hofstra Chronicle alumni make it, baby. So, anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you next time, JP. Take care.
Thanks as always, Leonard Brothers. Take care.
Thanks, JP. Good stuff as always.
Thanks.
Anyway, brother, some good stuff there from JP. You wanted to talk about the NBA draft, which is
Wednesday night, brother. Wednesday night. Wednesday night, we get another hopeful night for the Knicks, which we both know there are very few of those in the last decade or so.
Hope is different than actual real game practice or real game effectiveness.
Well, draft night is always a hopeful night for the Knicks, and the Knicks will pick 8th and 27th in the Wednesday night draft. The Knicks are in desperate need of a quality point guard to run whatever they have that might resemble an offense. The name that I keep hearing is Tyrese Halliburton of Iowa State, who has declared for the draft after a sophomore year that saw him average 15.2 points and 6.5 assists per game. Halliburton, he's a big guy for a point guard, 6'5", 185, so a little light, but at 19, 20 years old, whatever he is, most guys, they're still kind of filling out, and he'll grow and he'll get stronger. Passing and the aforementioned size are the best parts of his game, and his athleticism is sometimes questioned, but his passing is supposed to be very good. So he could wind up being the guy for the Knicks unless he gets picked before they pick 8th. And we have to remember that the Knicks, when they one time picked 8th, that Stephon Curry was the 7th pick that year by Golden State. So not a lucky spot for the Knicks. But another name that is being mentioned is point guard Killian Hayes, who played in France last season. Now, I know what you're thinking when you hear guard from France, brother. You think of Frank Ntilikina. But no, Hayes is not another Ntilikina. He actually grew up in Lakeland, Florida, and went to France last year to play professionally. So that's becoming a little move that some players are making now. Instead of going to college and playing a year and being a one and done, they're going to Europe or Australia or wherever. They're playing a year there to make a little money. And getting some professional experience, even though obviously the caliber of the opponents aren't as good. But when you're 18 years old, it's probably not a bad thing. It's almost like a minor league, like going to Double-A or Triple-A for a baseball player. So, right. And then they go into the draft, you get picked in the top 10, and you're good to go. As far as the 27th pick goes, that's anybody's guess. I'm wondering if the Knicks have thought, or if they can, maybe package that pick and their second round pick to maybe move up a few spots.
But how far they move up?
Not too much. I mean, nobody's going to let them move up too much just for a second rounder, and it certainly wouldn't make sense to package another first rounder from next year or whatever, from like maybe from one of those Dallas picks from the Porzingis trade. But I don't know what specifically the Knicks are going for. I think in that 27 pick, they're just going to go best available, and whoever that is, that's what it is. But you're looking at I don't know. Like I said, let's just go best available. The Nets with the number 19 pick. I think some of that might depend on there's this rumor going around that the Nets are in play to possibly trade for James Harden from the Houston Rockets. And one of the pieces being mentioned in that trade is the Nets center Jared Allen. Now, if that does come to fruition, and if it does happen, it's probably going to happen in the next couple of days, because teams do like to get business done before the draft. And especially I think the Rockets would like to, because they can get that pick, the 19 would probably go to the Rockets in that trade, and then the Rockets could pick somebody and show their fans, oh, look at the nice shiny new toy we have, and look, the rebuild, and we got all this talent from the Nets. But if Allen goes in the trade, and if the Nets can somehow keep that pick, then I think you're looking at maybe somebody like Jalen Smith out of Maryland, who was somebody who I've watched closely for a couple of years since I'm a big Maryland guy. He is athletic. He is a guy that's just getting better. Very, very, jumps out of the gym. Can block shots. Is very springy. He's got good ups, block shots. Does everything he needs to do under the basket. He could be a guy. He's a little bit different player than Allen. Allen is more of a prototypical center. Smith is a bit more athletic than Allen, but similar players. I think he could have an impact for the Nets if they wind up keeping him. Just to give a little background, of the top three picks, I think a lot of people are expecting LaMelo Ball, the brother of Lamar Ball, to be the number one pick by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then center James Wiseman, he played briefly at Memphis before being ruled ineligible. He's 7'1", and he likely will go to Golden State Warriors at number 2. And then Anthony Edwards, a shooting guard out of Georgia, is expected to go number 3 to Charlotte. Now, any of those three guys can go number 1. I haven't really seen anything as far as the Timberwolves saying, yes, we're taking any of the specific players, but any one of those three are the top 3 guys in the draft, but there is no definitive number 1. So it's not like some years where there was Zion Williamson was clearly the number 1 pick.
Right.
That was the guy that everybody wanted. You won the lottery. All right, great. We're getting Zion. Well, this year it's not like that.
I got a question for you, brother.
Yes, brother.
The NCAA's got canceled mid-game back in March. How much does that affect what you look at with some of these players that maybe you didn't get to see?
Well, it certainly does hurt some players' stock. I mean, players have been doing workouts. The NBA has been organizing that, so their teams have been able to get looks at players, and that was the concern after the NCAA tournament was scrapped, and with the NBA playing in the bubble and doing all that. But the players have been able to work out for teams, and I mean, look, I'm somebody who thinks that the amount of scrutiny paid to players is always too much. So these teams can certainly see game film from the season. They can certainly get the workouts in that they need to get in. So I don't think there's going to be any shortage of knowledge or any shortage of research being done on these players. So I don't think it's going to hurt at all. I mean, I really don't. It's
okay.
Teams love to be able to look at a guy, one more time or get to see this or whatever. It shouldn't have any kind of an impact. If a team says, "Well, we didn't know about this," or that's just them being lazy. They have so many scouts and so many voices in the room when they're making their boards and when they're talking to players that they have interest in. I don't see it having an impact. But as I said before with the Nets, James Harden, this story kind of came out of nowhere because the Rockets actually were looking to trade Russell Westbrook more than Harden, and now Harden is taking the stance of that he's not sure what the Rockets are doing in terms of do they want to win next season. So Harden might be trying to get himself out of Houston before they start to knock it down, because the Rockets really haven't gotten a whole lot of response to putting Westbrook's name out there.
Right.
So Harden apparently had a conversation with Kevin Durant in Los Angeles. Who knows how long ago? Maybe a month or so ago, and they talked about, hey, could we get this done? And what do you think? How would it all fit together? I tell you what, a backcourt with Kyrie Irving and James Harden in it, I challenge anybody to name a better backcourt.
Well, one thing I've said the last few years, brother, since the Nets have been in Brooklyn, I expect them to get better, and they really haven't. I mean, the Knicks have been horrible, but you know what? This is when the Nets should have won a championship. You're advancing it, brother. They signed those two guys last year. They signed Durant and Irving, and Durant didn't play. I don't know what you're expecting. But what I'm saying is that this is the time you make your move when the Knicks aren't going to do anything. You want to, if you can win a championship and get a lot of people to start following you, the Nets need that.
But that's why people are seeing the move as being something that could happen and is viable, is because if they get those three guys in, and it's going to cost a lot. It's going to cost some mixture of Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, probably a couple of draft picks. I don't think it's going to cost all of that, but It's going to cost some mixture of those players and picks. So, and then it becomes, how many basketballs do you have? Because James Harden is used to shooting volume, and Kyrie Irving is used to having the ball in his hands, and Kevin Durant is not going to be a guy who's going to be happy getting 9 or 10 shots a game under the basket. So these guys are all going to have to be able to share. So that becomes the issue.
Share. That's fair.
Exactly. Can the egos get along? That becomes the issue.
Okay.
So we shall see. How much more time do we have, bro?
Well, it's over, brother.
Oh,
Sean's giving us the signal. Anyway, you've been listening.
Congratulations to Kim Ng on being hired as the general manager of the Miami Marlins.
And we should say great ending yesterday. Cardinals over the Joe Ritter Bills. That great Hail Mary pass. It was a beautiful pass. Anyway, you've been listening to 90.3 WHPC from the Press Box, part of the Sports Talk family, which is Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and also an additional Sports Talk show every Tuesday, 10 p.m. to midnight. My name is Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is Tim Leonard. We'll see you next Monday, 9 a.m. This will be a podcast later on Spreaker.com and all the rest of the places. And thanks for Sean for keeping us on the air. Take care. Bye-bye.